Hello and welcome to the Sports Coin with me Kushagra, and we're here for a PL review today. Today I'm joined with the usual suspects here, Sulaksh, Prathamesh and of course Vijay. We have nowhere else to start apart from the big game of the weekend. That was apparently the big game of the weekend. You wouldn't really call like 8th taking on 15th as a big game, but those are the realities of the world today. Manchester United took on Arsenal, an absolute insipid performance from Manchester United, and Arsenal got a very, very well-deserved victory there at Old Trafford, their first win in 14 years. Uh, there isn't that much to say about it as a host here right now. I think I would rather go to the United and Arsenal fans, and as they say, one should just try and start, beginning things on a positive note. So I'll go to Sulaksh here. Sulaksh, I seem to remember you predicting a one goal victory. I know you predicted a 2-1 victory last week, but it must have been really, really sweet and really, really satisfying to watch your club finally get a victory away from home. I think 5 years it has been in the Premier League since it last won at a top six rival. So
So
that
that was
that must have been fantastic. And all in all, how happy you were with the Arsenal performance, and what do you have to say about the match?
the last victory that we had was in 2015. So, I mean, these are moments that have not been very common in the last 10 years, I would say. Even 15, I would like to go back that far. It was a very nice performance. It was a welcome change from the way we played against Leicester. And I think more of that has to do with how United played. And it kind of worked in our favor. And I was very surprised. So when the team sheet came out, I don't think a lot of Arsenal fans were very confident with the midfield pairing. Although we have Thomas Partey, and we'll get to that later how he performed. But Mohamed El Neni was a. It looked like one of those comfort picks, which we often see managers making. Like you guys complain about McTominay, where the manager likes the player or is just every manager has that one player which they try to fit in and use them as a utility player. Like I'll use them in any position I want because I believe the player is hardworking. So that's the impression we were getting. But El Neni put in a real shift. I mean, like I have some kind of things that I've planned out and I've looked at the match again and I've noticed the way that Partey and El Neni. So they were giving no space for your front two to operate. You were playing with the front two. And Greenwood and Rashford, I think Greenwood was on the left and Rashford was kind of on the right. And they were on them. Like our centre backs were actually a little bit behind to make space for the midfielders to do that pressing. And Bruno and Pogba were being kept quiet by our fullbacks. So Belvin was on Bruno Fernandes the whole game. It was very impressive and overall it was a very nice performance. And I think that the key point that we can take away from here is that at least we have that capability of going and shutting teams down and playing to not necessarily to our strengths more than playing to the other team's weaknesses, which I have not seen us do. Like we're very good at what we do, and that's why we've had those flourishing Arsenal performances in the last 10, 15 years. That flair, but we're not very good at adapting to what is required in the situation. And I must say, Thomas Partey, I mean, he took the show. I cannot. I will not hog it right now. I'll give it to Prathamesh for his piece, but I'll come back to the party analysis and the game plan.
All right. Pratnesh, as Sulaksh mentioned there, Thomas Partey and Mohamed El Neni, along with the two fullbacks that Arsenal had, they were quite effective when it came to neutralizing the United attack, and also I felt to an extent, the very fact that Arsenal were were playing two midfielders, in the midfield. At least in terms of their job description, they were playing only two midfielders in the midfield. Whereas Manchester United had three central midfielders and an attacking midfielder who can play as an eight as well, who was dropping back when it was about the defensive play for United. Uh, as someone who watched the match, the first half was extremely pathetic for Manchester United. I could not and did not see anything that United really were intending to do or were able to do. Uh, Oh, I'm obviously yes, yes, we're very, very, very sorry to the guys. I guess we've got some foreign disturbances in selection background, but yeah, moving on beyond that. Pratmesh, how do you think did you assess that match? How did you think the match went?
Yeah, I think the the match was exactly how Sulaksh got his disturbance. It was that disturbance to our form, basically, whatever form we called it. But I think a lot of people talked about El Nani, Partey, probably, even Bellerin for that matter, who proved really handful for United defenders. I personally felt it was really good to see what Arteta did against a four midfield combination, the diamond of United. The way they set up to play three at the back with wing backs, and the wing backs who cross the width, which was given them in plenty by the United midfielders because we were playing a narrow midfield. I think Saka and Tierney were pretty good, and I don't think both of them really got the mention they should have because they were excellent for Arsenal in the game. I think Tierney, I just feel like he's some 10 standard kid who is just wanting to do well in his examination every time he comes out. He's absolutely sincere in what he does, and call credits to Arsenal, to be honest. They pulled off a good job. However, that one mistake lost United the game with Pogba, and coming to Pogba rather, I personally felt that I didn't want to blame Pogba for trying that out. I mean, trying to win the ball, because I felt honestly after watching 90 minutes of that game that Pogba was the only player who was actually putting in some kind of effort, no matter how negative or positive that was. I felt he was the only one who was really wanting to win every ball, wanting to drive into the Arsenal defensive half, trying to make something happen. Although it did not happen for Pogba, and then again the question marks keep coming about where is the key that's going to unlock Paul Pogba? Is there a key that is going to unlock Paul Pogba, or is it something else? Because you see, when he goes internationally for France, he just becomes a different player. And when he comes back here, it's as if all those brains are left back in France. So with Pogba, this is I think as irritating as that moment was. I don't totally blame him for his performance. I felt a lot of United players didn't try enough. I think Rashford, Greenwood, Bruno Fernandes had probably his first off day in the Premier League. I felt Luke Shaw didn't try enough. Van Bissaka didn't try enough, and I think our centre backs tried as much as they could in absence of all these players. With McTominay, again, there is effort, but there is no quality to back that effort up. When you're in the Premier League, you're playing with fantastic midfielders around you. You're playing with some of the best players in the world around you. And yes, you need that hard work. You need that extra bit of, you could say, that extra yard in you, that extra mile in you to compete in a game. But you also need that little bit of quality. And I think that was missing. And one incident in particular in the game where quality was particularly missing and it could be highlighted out was the last minute where McTominay tried to pass the ball on to Cavani, was making a wide run, and he was trying to make it
Wow.
wide to inside. And if it was any other player, if it was Bruno Fernandes or Pogba, or even for that matter Harry Maguire, they would have tried that ball aerially, because there was no way in between those three players that ball was going to reach through the ground. Somebody was going to cut it off, and I think if it was Bruno, as bad a game as he had, he would have pulled that pass off. And that is one thing which I feel is really missing in McTominay's game. All credits to Jose for actually finding the guy out and making it happen for him to begin with. But then I don't think he has lived up to that expectation, and I think he just becomes very one-dimensional. He's just that one guy you're going to stick in front of your back four, and he's going to do a cleaning up job for you. But I think beyond that, in the Premier League now, you don't see those kind of players just sticking to those positions. You looked at Arsenal, you looked at El Neni, how well they pressed, how well Thomas Partey didn't just press. I think was enabling the transitions as well pretty well. He had a couple of shots when he had the space as well. So there's lots that's to develop in those senses. But I really it was good to see Premier League managers looking to win games tactically as much as on with the quality on the pitch. And I think Arteta won the game the moment he set back five against a narrow midfield four.
All right. Sulaksh, I'll come back to you on this. Of course, I'm sure you'll talk about Thomas Partey and his contributions there. But another aspect that I was really impressed with Arsenal was the the whole manner in which they came out to play the game. That they were on the attack from literally the first seconds, of the match. Got a corner very, very, very quickly into the match. And they kept on pressuring United. I remember, I think United did not have a meaningful attack up until like the 25th or 30th minute.
I
And
think it
there's
was
this,
that shot by Greenwood that made it
yeah, that straight shot towards by Greenwood, from the wider left side. So how massively different this was, because you've seen your performances versus Liverpool and City, and that's not to compare Manchester United to either of those clubs, because those clubs are way far ahead as compared to quality and control and matches as compared to this United team. But how did you see that Arsenal fared with this, and you know Arsenal's objectives for the season? Do you think you feel more justified in saying that you want to try out for the top four, considering you've defeated one of the so-called rivals for top four in an away match as well?
I think I mean, in isolation, this match is a good performance, but I think the problem with Arsenal again has been consistency, and I mean, it's a great win, but I can't sit here and rest on my laurels for a long time and gloat about it because we did have that loss to Leicester. So objectives of the season don't change. Objectives still remain to get those points out in the games that we are supposed to be getting them, and not drop those points like Crystal Palace and your Brighton and the ones that we've been doing. And then now that we have started adding a couple of like performances like this, taking points of our direct rivals, that really helps because whatever you might say, I still consider Manchester United to be a direct rival for the top four. I have some finishing statements for the game. So basically, one thing that I wanted to point out was the impact of Thomas Partey and Gabriel Magalhaes. Not to, I mean, harp on the same thing again and again, but one impressive thing that I noticed was there was a couple of moments in the match by Partey, and that is what when you see that you get to know that that is a real deal. So in the beginning, I think he started off the game in the fourth or fifth minute by a great run that he made from the defense and nutmegging a United player and opening up an attack. That's what I think got us our second corner of the game. Then there was a point in the second half, just before I think it was just before we had scored our goal. Thomas Partey was around the central circle. He lost the ball, and he lost the ball. The ball was moved forward to Paul Pogba, who was on the edge of the box. Thomas Partey went back and won the ball,
Yes.
took it out again, and then spread it to the left. So that's something that's been lacking. I mean, if it was Francis Coquelin or someone like the CDM that we've had, they would have probably given up. So I think it was an impressive performance, and Gabriel's tackle, that last ditch tackle that he made, that I think the right fans were saying it's a penalty, but I don't think it's a penalty. He got the ball. So these are the things, that clutch moments is where we need that quality, and that's rising through. Zinger that I read today, finishing it up with the Thomas Partey magic. So they're saying that they're comparing Thomas Partey to the coronavirus because man had all the United players on lockdown. So it's a good performance. I think we can take a lot from it, and it's just a question of what we're
Did
gonna
you cough on purpose?
do. Maybe.
It is quite coincidental, sort of worked, didn't it? But yeah. So Vijay, on cue there. As before we get to your Chelsea match, just a couple of lines on this match and on this result, and of course the impressive performance by Arsenal.
I actually hate to be the last person you want to talk about this because I would actually not have similar views to either of the panelists because I would actually look at the Manchester United performance in comparison to the earlier game which they played against Chelsea and questions on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and the approaches to the game. One interesting thing that I read was you know how teams are kind of moving away from the number 10 role, whereas Manchester United have consistently had that number 10 role, Bruno Fernandes. So you have an over reliance on the number 10, Bruno Fernandes, and when he has a bad game, the team have a bad game.
Yeah.
And their attack is so reliant on, and I'm a Chelsea fan, so for the last 8 years we've had Eden Hazard and no matter who comes in, there is going to be an over reliance on that person. So you either try to fit the team to him, or you find a manager who can use him in a different way or use other players in different ways. So uh, first question I think United fans can ask is, was there a difference between Chelsea and the Chelsea game and the Arsenal game in terms of attack? Like, is your team improving game by game? That's an interesting question to ask. And secondly, it worked against PSG, so I'm not saying that it's not going to.
Yeah,
And but I think one question was, if you look at Arsenal, I think even the game they had before was a game where creativity was lacking against Manchester City, if I'm not wrong, right? And again, these are games that I'm not paying too much attention to, but I try to keep abreast. But now Arsenal's approach is always the same. It's structural. Like, we're going to try, scoring through structure and not through individual brilliance. Whereas Manchester United, I think, are always uh, Manchester United are kind of always trying to get their star players, or like Bruno Fernandes or somebody like that, to score their goals or create something new. So I think that's a difference between Manchester United and Arsenal right now, and I think Arsenal won because of that kind of a difference.
all right. Okay.
It's
I
just an
think
opinion. Yeah.
I think that about sums it up. It was a sorry performance for Manchester United, and I think it would serve better for the public as well, especially Manchester United fans, if we move on from this match. So yeah, staying with you, Vijay, we come to the Chelsea victory there. Of course, let's say Chelsea match there. It were obviously meant there was a Chelsea victory as well. This is your fourth clean sheet in a row, if I'm not wrong. And for a team that was really struggling defensively, and for a team wherein everyone was questioning whether Frank Lampard can coach a defense, and Frank Lampard can, whether he can really build a team which is more balanced in that sense. If he's seen an over reliance on his attack, and the team conceded something like 47 goals last year, which is not acceptable for a Chelsea side, of course. So how do you see this? Do you see this as a combination of factors that perhaps that in these four matches, apart from Sevilla, I guess, you haven't really played teams who have really pushed you in terms of their attacking philosophies, or do you see it more as a reaffirmation or a confidence building within the Chelsea squad?
I actually believe it's the podcast, because the last time we were on the podcast, they played against Krasnodar, and then the formation changed, and then we won 4-0. So I think the post-match interview with Lampard after we beat Krasnodar in the Champions League was that the change in formation, where he played a 4-3-3 instead of the 4-2-3-1 he's been trying, was where he said that's answered a lot of questions for him. And against Burnley, I think more questions got answered in terms of what could be our best starting 11, and what could be a best offensive or best use of our resources that we have right now. Think of it like you said, we've had defensive problems, and I think throughout the episodes that I've been on this podcast, I've kept saying that it's incredibly difficult for this Chelsea team to have a solid defense. And now we're seeing, we saw two games where Chelsea played extremely boring, very Jose, and that's resulted in nil-nil draws. And now we're seeing the attack flourish, and it's, I think, direct reaction to the formation change that Lampard has had. uh, Basically, the best uh, 3 points on the formation that I would say is, one is it reveals Mason Mount, or it allows Mason Mount to be in his best position, which is a number 8. The other point I would say is, one of the reasons we won the Burnley game is Tammy Abraham kind of played as a false 9. He was actually unselfish, which was, I think, we had a couple of games ago where he fought Jorginho for a penalty, whereas now he's setting up goals for Ziyech, which is incredible, which is awesome, which is something I think he's probably picking up from Giroud. And
Also Firmino.
yeah, but Firmino is not his teammate, even though I guess he wishes he was. But what I can say is, the third thing about the formation is, I guess the defensive solidity that it gives, because okay, no, actually, I credit the defensive solidity with Thiago Silva and Zuma. One interesting thing that I heard was, okay, guys, the general consensus, the best Premier League defender for quite some time in the Premier League has been Virgil van Dijk. He's
Yeah.
not there. Now, Aymeric Laporte is also not there. And based on the performances of Thiago Silva and Zuma the last couple of games, when you actually look at fantasy Premier League and you look at centre backs who are going to give you, a proper solid foundation for the rest of the season, I think Thiago Silva and Zuma is a good chance of that compared to the other defensive
Safer bet.
injury crisis. Yeah, safer bet, and that's super surprising because 2 episodes back I was saying that there is no way I know how this defense can be closed. And just to also give another bit of information on the defense, I think Mendy is the first Chelsea goalkeeper since Petr Cech to have 3 clean sheets in a row in his first games. Yeah, that's
Oh,
not happened since Petr Cech started for
that's like
Chelsea.
2004.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's like the cycle continues. I hope, but that's still for us to see. So now I guess we spoke about defense. To speak about attack is, well, I put it in one sentence. Now we know why we spent that money, and it was for everyone to see with Hakim Ziyech. And I mean, it was his first game that he started, and I think you can see why Lampard was very slow to let him, not rush him into the game, but because he found his footing. And I think what, a goal and an assist,
Yeah.
and I think
Fabulous.
very few shots I've seen where that left foot just, it's so lovely to see just curve it into
It's
the.
beautiful. It's a wonderful left foot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen the crosses, and I think that's something that everybody expected, but that shot was really out of like
Yeah.
nowhere, and I think even I
Yeah.
couldn't blame the keeper.
I think he just reminds a lot of Chelsea fans, especially if back in 2012 with Mata.
Hmm.
When prime Mata actually played for Chelsea, and he was
Yeah.
pretty much
I,
on
I,
the
I,
similar.
I'd
Yeah.
probably say he's Mata 2.0 in that sense because he's got a bit of pace about him,
Yeah.
a bit of physical
I think
strength
I
about
think
him
he's
as well.
yeah, slightly upgraded, more physical version of Mata.
Yeah.
And wonderful player, and incredible to see. He works as hard as he actually has that skill on the ball. So that
Hmm.
is something that really keeps him in good stead, and that is probably one of the reasons why Chelsea signed him, because they probably needed a player who did that dirty work along with actually going forward and creating goals for fun. So I think that's good to see, and
Yeah,
really
I
shrewd signing
definitely
in that
say
sense.
if he's playing earlier was Willian, and he did the industrious part of the whole game very well, but he wasn't consistent with the attack opportunities created. And I think Ziyech is maybe a bit more in his prime right now for that kind of a job that he's
Yeah.
set out to do. And I think against Burnley, it was very evident for us to see that he did do that job very well.
Yeah, and fantastic result for Chelsea. Talk. I think moving on. There's another North London club. It was a really good day for London clubs in general. I think a very good weekend. Sorry, Spurs were really really impressive. Sulash, they got their goal. Had the Harry Kane penalty. Yes, the penalty rule in general. It's been in doubt for a very very long time, and the Bale goal. I think it's the first time he scored for Spurs in 7 years. First Bale goal in the Premier League. It was a good header. It was a great cross by Sergio Reguilon. I think if he plays the entire season, he'll probably end up as the best left back in the league because his pace is infectious. His delivery is fantastic. And just a final finishing point on Spurs here. We will not give them that amount of time on this podcast at least. I think they have a couple of big games coming up in the next weekends. Do you really feel that Jose is changing the mentality and the culture of the club? And I won't use the C word, but other players slowly moving towards it
I
because
know,
Spurs,
I know
because
one C
Spurs,
word that people would like to use.
yeah. Spurs have the most number of average fouls per match after Brighton in the league.
I don't think it's more to do with the mentality because Jose Mourinho, I mean, people, a lot of people say just stamp him as a defensive coach. But I think Jose Mourinho has been one of the early adopters of being flexible with his formations. Mourinho has always played his man, like you say on the poker table. You don't play the cards, you play the man. Mourinho has always played mind games, and he's always tweaked his formation.
Who
Maybe
knows? Who knows it better than an Arsenal fan?
exactly. I mean, he's tormented us in many ways, and a lot of teams. I mean, he's just been able to get the result he wants by little tweaks to his defensive system and adding a bit here, subtracting here. From for the weekend, I actually think I saw most of the game. I think I saw 70-80 minutes of the game. Tottenham were not that good. I mean, they were Tottenham like we have seen this season, good in parts and fair play to them. They had a penalty incident that they won, and on that I would like to comment. I don't. I mean, people are stating Harry Kane should have died, but if the rules are the rules, I would want my player to go down when he feels contact. I mean, the old Arsenal, we would have seen Hector Bellerin maybe not going down for that penalty or not having that aggressive appeal against United. He did that, and we got the result because of that. And I don't think that's something that you should put on Harry Kane, and it's something that the defenders should learn that you know it's not a game like it was 20 years ago where people were it was maybe less competitive or maybe it was just more of a gentleman's thing where
Yeah,
people
but I still feel, does this really, is it fair to the defenders? I mean,
see.
even a little touch, even a little feather touch like the one which you saw, I think even with Bellerin, I don't think 10 years before that was a penalty.
Pratmesh, I think that I mean you can't really say if it's fair on the defenders or not because as a striker, when you are bearing down on goal, even the slightest hint of a touch or
It can pull you
Yeah,
down.
even the sense of an oncoming touch, and even if it doesn't come, it just shakes everything up. It shakes your momentum. It takes your eye off the ball. So it's something that defenders have to learn. If you are not touching the ball, you're not going for it, and that's something that is something that's been taught since time immemorial.
but I
Not
think the penalty rule is becoming very harsh for the
it's becoming
defenders
harsh. I agree
and
to that.
also for the goalkeepers, because it's
I
incredibly difficult for a goalkeeper to, keep his eye on the ball, keep his eye on the striker, keep his eye on the line
I
where
think, I
he's
think, I
supposed
think,
to
I
be
think, I
I
think
positioned.
that
think that's
that aspect, that aspect, staying on the line, I think that's fair because already it's 12 yards, if I'm not
Yeah,
wrong, right?
mm,
So it's not much the distance, and if the guy managed to get like 2 or 3 yards on it, that's 25% of the distance covered. No one can get an angle on the ball if you're coming closer and closer and closer to
yeah.
the ball. So I don't disagree there. I like how few goalkeepers do it. They keep one foot on the
Mm.
line as a launching foot and the other foot just slightly ahead of the line, so
yeah.
that
So that's
they're able to
basically
gauge
allowed.
the
You
distance.
have to have one foot on the line. So that's
Yes, I
flexibility
like
that
that.
you
I
have.
like that. You don't need to be behind the line or on the line. Just one of the foot has to be on the
I
line, and
mean,
that's fair enough.
but another thing I'd like to point out is that just sorry to cut you off, but the last point of this game is that Tottenham, although they sometimes look iffy, and I have mentioned that they didn't have the best of performances, but one thing that I liked about them was Tottenham are one of those teams that can turn it on in games. I mean,
Yes.
they have Son, they have Kane, and they have Reguilon, like you mentioned, he's an amazing crosser of the ball, and Gareth Bale. We all know what
Well,
Bale can do.
let's not forget Moura, Lo Celso, who've not
Morales
played much
also
this season.
they've not played and they're impact players, so they can just
Yes.
change the like even against United they change the game within 10 minutes. So that's something that they're capable of doing, and that's something to look out for in the future.
Yeah, and they've got the world's I guess how to say most brittle person in the world in Eric Lamela as well. Felt like a pack of cards at Old Trafford. Anyway, I'm still a little bit salty about it, but yeah, we'll move on. So yeah, moving on, we come to the two top of the table teams. City are not there right now because of a few how do I say, iffy results at the beginning of the season. But we do expect them to get to the top two positions as the season progresses. And they had an interesting match here, Sulaksh. They won 1-0. Considering it's Pep's team and they've only scored 9 goals in the first 6 games, I don't think Pep is so happy with that because he did mention that in his post-match press conference. But he must be pleased with the fact that Laporte and Ruben Diaz seem to be finding form there, and Kyle Walker was just absolutely immense last week.
I think Kyle Walker had a great game, and Manchester City have actually added this new weapon in their arsenal, which is, I mean, they always kind of won dirty with their fouls and the games ratio, but trying to ride a game out in the end because it's a very different season for Pep Guardiola. I think this is probably the first time that he's been in that position where he doesn't have the strongest or the second strongest team in the league in terms of maybe in terms of star power you can say, but definitely not in terms of form over the last 2 years. And it's very difficult for him. It's fun to see for him to adapt because frankly I have never seen a Pep Guardiola team take the lead in the first half and then defend for their lives like the way they did.
Yeah,
He put on it. I mean, I've never seen him put on an extra midfielder that he put on in the like at the 70th minute, and
I think he brought on Fernandinho, right?
brought on Fernandinho, and it was really refreshing because it shows you how football is a game that's always changing, and no one can have the limelight forever because even Pep Guardiola has had to change his mentality into these small games because maybe 3 years ago you'd have seen a City team maybe win this one 5-1 or 6-2. So I think it was a good change, and Manchester City need to keep it up because their scoring is really low, and Pep Guardiola needs to find an option to having a permanent replacement for Aguero because I think that's not happening.
All right. Just as a finishing note on Sheffield United as well, I genuinely feel that even though they're near the bottom of the league, if they do perform, keep these levels up as they've shown against Liverpool and City, there is no chance that they would go down because I think the squad is too good and the application from the manager is too good. Coming to close victories there, Vijay, Liverpool have been showing the form of champions. Last weekend they get a tough victory. This weekend they get a tough victory, and West Ham for quite a bit in that match were looking very, 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 very worthy of their draw, if not a victory as they'd gone ahead in the beginning. How did you see that match going? And of course, have you seen the Salah incident? Have you seen the penalty incident?
Yeah, I have. I mean, who
And what are
hasn't
your
at this
opinions on
point?
that? Because the TS team is, I wouldn't say it's divided, but some of us have a strong opinion, and some of us still feel that it's quite a ridiculous thing that's happening in the Premier League now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm sorry. I think 2 episodes back, I took David Moyes' case. He is killing the big teams. West
Yeah,
Ham
dude, he
are
is.
performing very well, right?
He is.
He took Liverpool, the champions, too, and he drew against City. So kudos to
I think
him.
I think they were unlucky to lose that match. I genuinely feel they were.
Yeah, and we're talking about David Moyes, right? Liverpool, they were unlucky to lose against. So yeah, good for you, David. Starting, but now coming to the man who we forced to play the devil, right? Salah. What was that? I think there are three things I can say. One is if the penalty for diving and simulation is just going to be yellow card, people are still going to keep doing it. Two is there's a difference between Salah's and Harry Kane's foul. Harry Kane saw that he could get the contact and he kind of aimed at it. And it's also a dangerous situation. Whereas Salah's was, okay, I wanted to technically cheat or be clever, you decide. And that's something for the referees to ask, because a question that comes out is, should they start preparing on players? Like if Salah is going to, should they know that, oh, it's Salah, so I have to make sure that he does this in common. Harry Kane, he's been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah.
And is that something that we have to ask our referees to start doing, or have
I think the
we?
referees have done that before. Like there was a point when Ashley Young used to consistently dive to get penalties.
Fair
He
enough,
Like
but
consistently
as
used to
per
keep
the
getting
rule
like
booked,
book,
even
right?
when it was a penalty. It has happened a couple of times there as well.
Yeah, but I mean, as a rule, if you ask a referee, hey, do you do preparation? The rule is no, I'm supposed to be a referee. It's morally right for me to only judge on
Yeah,
the
yeah, he
game.
has to keep all
But
bias out of the match. Yeah.
but yeah, now if the FA Cup, I mean, or if the association says that, start preparing and do your research, it could be better, because some people will get fouled more than others. Some people look for fouls more than others. And definitely, this is not, there is going to be no end of fans saying that should be a penalty, this shouldn't have been a penalty. But ultimately, it's the ref's job. And if they can get better at it, then that will be great.
All right. All in all, I think Liverpool again. They keep rolling on. It's equally as impressive that they had someone like Matt Phillips playing in defense, and I felt he was very very good. Given his, I think this must have been his first start in the Premier
Yeah, it
League.
was his first start. It was nice. He played very nice.
Oh, all right. So, but I was really impressed by the young man. Uh, I think we've got one major fixture to discuss, and we'll head on to that now. So yeah, and the last fixture that we're looking at is, of course, Leeds versus Leicester, the Monday night fixture. Monday night fixture? Yes, it was a Monday night fixture. The Monday night fixture, and let me just say, Leicester were absolutely fantastic last night. I think they thoroughly deserved the victory. They thoroughly deserved to win, and a team in which they had so many players out or injured or suspended or just not starting on, from in the first 11, someone like James Patterson who was on the bench. All in all, I felt, Leeds were thoroughly beaten. They were, they were soundly beaten in that match. I think must be their first loss at home this season. And I don't know what else can you say, because Brendan Rodgers is a tough man to understand. He goes away and wins every time, but yet at home it's looking a little suspect. So how did you see that match?
It was a really good game if you're a Leicester fan, because you saw Vardy play well. When Vardy usually plays really, really well and is on his game, Leicester usually win. That's what happened. Good to see Tillemans, staying very close to Vardy in most situations in the game, because uh, because Bielsa's teams continue to play the high press and the high line. There's always that little bit of space for the opposition midfielders to come into and actually create an impact. That's what Leicester basically did. Tillemans had a good night, so did Vardy, and I think the 4 goals, I think they were the major contributor in all of those goals. So that's pretty much about Leicester in that sense. But I think with Leeds, what we are seeing and what we got really refreshed with was their style of football and the way they really press. But the mastermind that Bielsa is, I still just think on the back of my mind, does he even consider defending to be his primary source of building something? Because you might press all you can, but at the end of the day, when your best centre back, Luke Ayling, probably your second best centre back, is playing at right back because he's very good on the ball, because he's very energetic. You're playing Koch at the centre back positions. The German international hasn't really done well, and you could see in the game he wasn't at the mistake for four of the goals, rather all four Leicester goals. He got bullied by Vardy, he got out muscled by Vardy, and he also got beaten on pace with Vardy. So basically Vardy was just having a field day with him. And the fourth time when actually Vardy decided to have a run on Koch, I think it was good that Click fouled him, because otherwise it would have been another Koch error. So I think that is where something that Bielsa might have to look at, because as good as Koch is being for his previous team, and as good as he is on the ball, he doesn't seem to be physically ready for the Premier League. So that is something that he needs to consider playing Ailing back at centre back.
All right.
I think one more thing about this game, one thing to look out for is that Leicester, they've been very good against other attacking teams. I mean,
Yeah.
they have poor showing against an Aston Villa team, and then they come straight back and beat Arsenal. They smack City up. So I think Brendan Rodgers has that part of the plan covered. He just has to now figure out how to win at home, where the onus is on Leicester and not on the other team.
It's interesting how only one manager is able to in the Premier League figure both things out. That's Jurgen Klopp. I think all the other managers are facing the same thing, one or the other.
Yeah, I think without doubt you could say Liverpool are best placed still, in spite of the losses to their squad, in spite of the losses to their, probably their morale. I think they've had a sort of funeral for Virgil van Dijk over the last month or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we decided, Vijay strongly wanted to talk shit about Liverpool, but I guess Vijay is just not the same as Sushil not being here.
Actually, no, it is great that Sushil's not here because the last episode started with Sushil saying, I don't think Brendan Rodgers should try to out tactic Bielsa.
Yes, yeah.
Voila.
He just did it.
Well, we will keep this for the preview next week. I think we're gonna make sure Sushil has a couple of, at least if his club's not giving him a few zingers or a few bouncers as they say in cricket, we should at least try our best as a
Yeah.
team to do, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All
He
right, all
blocked
right.
me.
That about wraps it up for us, boys. Thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you to Vijay, Pratnesh, and Sulaksh, of course. Once again, congratulations to Vijay and Sulaksh. Fantastic victories for both your teams, especially for Arsenal there, Sulaksh.
Yeah.
And Vijay, I guess the Chelsea wagon wheel keeps rolling on.
And we are back to Obituary United.
Yeah, Obituary United. Yes. Of course, we're back there. Struggling in 15th. I think we should be United should be more concerned about the teams below them than above them.
Yeah.
So, I think that about wraps it up, boys. Once again, thank you so much for watching. To our viewers who have please do share, subscribe, and put the content out there in your comments below. Do let us know what did you think of the weekend's matches, especially that fantastic victory for Arsenal over United. And we have a few exciting matches coming up over the weekend as well, so we'll keep you covered there. So keep it locked to the TSD and see you soon.